Hi everybody, Jim Ostrowski with the Liberty Moving Podcast. 2 days in a row we're getting into a groove. I've just been kind of busy. But I figured I better get back in the game in light of everything that's going on. Sorry for the cough. So, what do we do now? I don't actually know. This is going to be a wild ride because I don't really know what I'm going to say. And that's a little scary. So, I think the events of the last couple weeks, 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, the church shooting, the stabbing in the subway, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, almost on live TV, and with respect to the latter two incidents, with graphic, disgusting, bloody videos available, and I refuse to watch the full video of either one. I inadvertently have seen a second or two of both, and it's just makes me sick to my stomach. I was extremely upset about both incidents, as many and most decent human beings were. And there's been a recognition that these two incidents, but with Charlie Kirk, the straw that broke the camel's back, but the two of them are really kind of combined in a lot of people's minds and in mine. Two brutal killings in cold blood, different reasons, different perpetrators, but signifying the fact that there's something deeply wrong with this country. There's something deeply wrong with this country. And we're at the point where we're not going to reform our way out of this. We're not going to gradualize our way out of this. We're not going to baby step our way out of this. We're not going to incrementalize our way out of this. So the question is, what are you going to do about it? To quote Al Pacino's speech. So, what are you going to do? I got you riled up. What are you going to do? The events got you, not me. The events got just channeling that movie. What are you going to do? And we know what happened in the movie. They responded. One of the greatest speeches of all time, in my view. So what are you going to do? Now, it's been pointed out that got to watch out for electric scooters. I guess that's the wave of the future. I don't have a real problem with it, but I don't want to get killed either. So it's been pointed out that there's been a spiritual revival, and I'm fine with that. You have to understand that I'm a political commentator. I'm not a theologian. I don't step out of my lane. But as a political commentator, I think it's crystal clear that, and this is kind of we're getting warmer as to what I'm going to talk about today. It's pretty clear that this notion of modernity, that we're going to get, we're going to get rid of religion and everything's going to be great. People are going to rationally think things out. No, that has not happened. What happens is when people get rid of abandoned traditional religion, they adopt non-traditional religions. And the chief non-traditional religion is the belief in the state. The belief in the state. And, if you look at any of the predominant ideologies out there, they all have that one thing in common. Worship of the state. Worship of the fucking state. The most violent institution in human history. And progressives worship it. It's going to solve all of our problems. Leftists worship it even more. And even conservatives worship it. Marxists love it. Fascists love it. And it's become this, excuse me, I got a little bit of a sore throat. The funny thing is, I literally haven't been sick since COVID. And I attribute that to my fitness regimen. But sometimes you slip up. So, sorry, a little distracted here crossing Kenmore Avenue, thanks. So, I have no problem at all with religious revival. I have no problem at all with it. It's perfectly consistent with some libertarians are religious, some are not. But I think there's a school of thought that says that in many ways libertarianism arose out of Christianity. And that's a big, long, complicated argument I'm not going to get into. And I'm not really an expert on the history. I'm not really an expert on the history of ideas. I'm pretty good at it, but it's not I can't claim I'm world class in that regard. So that's fine. That's fine. Many anecdotal stories of people going to church for the first time in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. I think that's great. I'm all for it. I'm all for it. But that's not going to be enough. You have a regime out there that's not going to crumble or fall apart just because a bunch of people went to church for the first time in 5 or 10 years. So we already know. Well, we already know if you've read my books and listened to my podcasts that politics is a rigged game. And look at the example of MAGA. This massive movement, powerful, massive movement for change of the last 10 years. And think of all the money and the effort and the voting and the volunteers and the emotional investment people made in MAGA. But I've already proven that if you take the basic regime in this country, which has existed since Woodrow Wilson, 1913, progressivism, and you break down its elements, its structure, which goes back to the Constitution, by the way. Sorry, conservatives. The Constitution created the framework for an extremely powerful government. And although the ideology supporting that goal did not exist at the time, it does now. And they use the Constitution to create that progressive regime that we suffer under today. So, what's the status of the progressive state of America, which I called it in Progressivism a Primer. I like to use words accurately. It's not the United States, plural. It's the United States. It's the progressive state of America. It's one unified state run from Washington. The states are just the federal government's bitches, sorry. The progressive state has survived 5 years of Trump, and in his last 3 years, he gives no indication whatsoever he's going to get rid of the progressive state any of the major elements of the progressive state. Okay, cut funding for NPR, and I admit that's good. That's good. But there's a institution that's government run that's way more powerful in influencing our politics than NPR, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So the bottom line is, look, folks, if you agree that we had these 2-3 grotesque wake-up calls, the country is seriously fucked, and you're ready to do something about it. Not just the same old bullshit, go to a rally. And I'm not talking about the vigil. That was a prayer vigil. I was there. My wife was there. It wasn't a rally. It's not the type of rally I'm talking about. But if you think the traditional methods of democracy are going to do it this time, you are sadly mistaken. As I pointed out many times, the last time an election increased the overall liberty of American citizens. See left-wing slogans on the bike path. So disgusting. Apropos of what we're talking about, the last time an election increased overall liberty in America was 1800. I've never seen anybody challenge me on that. So politics doesn't work. Politics is a rigged game. Politics is a waste of time. And by politics, I mean 4 things: voting, supporting candidates, litigation, and lobbying. I'm not categorically against them. I'm just saying you're going to move the needle like 1%, maybe. Do we look like a country that needs to... God, that's frustrating. Do we look like a country that needs to change 1% to the left or 1% to the right? That's what politics does. It moves the needle a couple points here and a couple points there. And in one area, you're losing in another area. Trump's done some pro-liberty things. Trump's done some anti-liberty things. And then you take out your calculator at the end of the day and you say, okay, we got, half a percentage point more liberty under Trump. So that obviously politics is a rigged game. If you want to play that sucker game, just turn off the podcast and go do something else. You're just wasting your time. So what's left? Well, there's only 2 things left. There's only 2 things left. One of them is violence, and there's my logo. I'm not for that. The whole point of the liberty movement is it's an anti-violence movement. We just recognize that most violence in society is caused by the state. The thing that destroys your natural right to liberty, which is when you wake up in the morning, you set your own agenda in your life. What's preventing you from doing that? It's not the criminal. I mean, I've been physically assaulted twice. I've never been burglarized, thank God. Never had a car stolen. I've had some petty thefts, I suppose. One time I lost some cash in a public place. Somebody stole it from me. Whatever. But on a daily basis, I've got the government barking thousands of orders at me, each one of which, if I violate, I get my brains blown off. The violence is mainly coming from the state. So libertarianism is an anti-violence movement. So the notion that you're going to use violence to fight violence is quite flawed. I'm not saying you can't use that violence isn't justified in self-defense. But look, I'm not going to get into a dissertation on violence. I do not believe that violence is the way to go from a repressive, progressive big government regime to a libertarian regime. Because violence basically, I'm not going to get into the whole philosophical analysis, but violence basically breeds violence. And you saw in the Oklahoma City bombing, if you take the standard account, that, what was the result of that? They blamed it on Rush Limbaugh. It reduced his influence for 5 or 10 years. Clinton got a second term. So violence usually backfires. In American history, violence usually backfires. Things that could have been accomplished peacefully, people used violence and they did not achieve their goals. So really, there's only one thing left. And I only have a couple steps to go. I'm halfway done with my walk, so I better get to the punchline. The only thing left is direct citizen action. The only thing left is direct citizen action. So if you think that Charlie Kirk's death has changed everything, and I think in many ways it has, it's woken people up, and we need to do something, and we're not going to move the needle 1%. We've got to do something drastic. So the only thing that's left is direct citizen action. And everything I recommend, by the way, is peaceful and legal. So again, just to emphasize that. So out of all the forms of direct action, and there's like 15 of them, and I'm waiting for other people to discover more. But you've got, for example, voting with your feet, which frankly I'm in the process of trying to do that right now. Somebody would, well, we won't go there, but I am in the process of working on that personally. So what else is there? Voting with your health, walking, taking care of yourself. There's a lot of great things you can do. But when you look at the list of things you can do that are appropriate for this moment, where things have to change radically fast or we're fucked, that is a very short list. And 7,500 steps a day, I fervently believe that that's important. And it's important not only for your health, but for the whole country. But 7,500 steps a day is not going to move the needle fast enough. We had no daycare in the 70s. We've got daycare now. It's like this institution. I don't think pulling your kids out of daycare is going to do it fast enough and hard enough. So I'm not going to go through the whole panoply of things that I don't think are going to have a big enough impact immediately. I'm just going to go right to the one thing that strikes at the heart of the beast, strikes at the belly of the beast, the fatal flaw of the American experiment, and most certainly the cause of almost all of our problems, or related to all of our problems. And that's this concept that the government should grab your kids at age 5, force them to sit in a detention center for 6 or 7 hours a day, and be brainwashed into being good little left progressives by members of Democratic teachers' unions. This is the number one problem in the country. I've been talking about it for years. People thought I was exaggerating. Government schools are bad for your kids. What do you mean? I mean, I sent that book to people that I thought would be influenced by it. And all I heard was crickets. It's like, did you read the book? Did you think I was kidding? See, I think a lot of people think that when you're a writer, you write this sensational title. I don't. If you look at all the titles of my books, they're just describing the contents of the book. Political Class Dismissed is my first book. direct citizen action. It's about direct citizen action. Government schools are bad for your kids. The title describes the contents of the book. Chapter 1, crime. Chapter 2, sex. Chapter 3, drugs. Chapter 4, on and on and on and on and on. Chapter 10 is how to pull your kids out. Practical tips. So that's it, folks. It's game, set, match. Now I did check on this one issue, and there is no other issue. You know, it's like Paul Newman and the verdict. There are no other cases. This is the case. There are no other cases. This is the case. He kept repeating it to himself. There are no other issues. This is the issue. Government school. Government school. It is the source of so many of our problems, so many lost souls. You don't think that stabber on the subway went to government school? Why isn't anybody talking about that? Why are these places on it? Somebody said on TikTok, 99% go to. I said, no, it's 90. But here's the thing. I was going on old data from when I wrote my book on government schools. It was 90 back then, but it's actually only 83 now. And I tried to drill down a little bit before the podcast, and apparently the main change is homeschooling. And I said decades ago, the number one political strategy of the libertarian movement should be homeschooling. I wish I could say that libertarians were responsible for the homeschooling surge, but it was really more of the lockdown. But I'd like to think libertarians can claim a little bit of credit. So we've already been able to knock it down without an organized effort. And I think what I'm saying is, I'll say it now, is we need an organized effort on this. It can't be just Jim Ostrowski and his two books, Government Schools Are Bad for Your Kids, and Free the Children, the two books I've written. It can't be just one guy on a podcast in North Buffalo. It's got to be a movement. And I haven't figured out exactly how to do it, but that's why I'm doing this podcast. And I'm going to be talking about it, thinking about it, strategizing about it. But that's it, folks. We need a massive movement. And I don't care, it's September, school just started. Fuck that. Fuck that. We need a massive withdrawal of our kids from these daytime juvenile detention centers, these re-education camps, where they're getting inculcated with a lot of the sick shit ideas that are leading to the poisoning of our youth, and oftentimes results in this grotesque, senseless, graphic violence. So that's it. It's game, set, match. This is the issue. There's no other issue. I'm going to devote a tremendous amount of my time in the next days and weeks and months on trying to figure out how to create a mass movement. And one of the things I'm going to do, I'm running for chair of the Libertarian Party. I want the Libertarian Party to shift away from futile political activity, not totally, but to de-emphasize it and go towards direct action. So it would be a lot easier if we had this national organization supporting this idea. And I'm going to be trying to convince them to do it. I'm running for chair. I'm going to be at the convention next year in Minnesota, where the church shooting took place. So that's basically it. I think that let me just sum up a little bit. The country is seriously on the wrong track. Drastic action needs to be taken. Violence is not an option. Violence is what we're against. Violence is what our opponents like to do. We want to stop that, so we can't use violence, obviously. It's not efficient anyway. Even if you forget about morality of it, it's not effective. It's not effective. The French Revolution is a good example of that. It led to, a dictator, Napoleon taking over, and wars and mass murder and so on, did not lead to a libertarian continent in Europe. The American Revolution, I think, while not perfect by any means, had a much better outcome. Debating this now on TikTok. Sorry for that. So, politics is rigged. Politics is not going to accomplish anything. I think Donald Trump has proved that. Do you really have more control over your own life now, after Trump has been elected twice, than you did before? Government has grown in various local, state, even in the federal government. While Trump has been there, he's making it bigger in some ways, making it smaller in other ways. The only thing is direct action, direct citizen action. And out of that very powerful set of tools, one will move the country very rapidly in the right direction. And I'll spend the last couple minutes till I hit hurdle, where I'll go to Dash's Buy Local for Liberty, have my coffee, and do the day job. So, first of all, just look at the bean counting. Everybody talks about spending and how expensive life is. Well, government spends $11 trillion a year. And I did a podcast on this, and when you analyze like the basic categories of spending, you realize it's all bullshit. It's all transfer payments and smoke and mirrors and bullshit. But guess what government school costs? $1 trillion. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. So first of all, if we massively withdraw from these places, they're going to have to cut their budgets, and we're going to actually save money. The economy will improve. You'll actually see your kids. Why would you have kids and then just put them in some warehouse? I think most parents would really want to see their kids more. We know what the other influences are. We saw it during the lockdown. I heard a story about some government school teacher, they're hardcore leftists, many of them, not all of them. There's a few conservatives, but they're kind of drowned out by the crowd, and the textbooks suck. And we know who's writing the textbooks. It's left-wing progressive academics. The shock troops of the Democratic Party are the teachers. This virus of left-wing ideology, which is inculcating hate and is often behind many of these shootings, it's inculcated in these schools. It's inculcated by more of the Democratic Party. I'm not any partisan for the Republican Party. I trash the Republican Party all the time, always have, always will. But look at that political impact on weakening the party that's behind many of these crazy ideologies that are afflicting our children. It would damage the Democratic Party. The population, which has been brainwashed to believe in big government, that would change, and you would start to have less political support for big government. Not going to go through all the benefits. There's many multiple benefits, but the big thing is taking your kids out of these places that are violent, hypersexualized, where drugs are rampant, and where they're brainwashed into believing in very destructive ideologies that often spur on violence and certainly are in support of the institutionalized violence of the state. You would withdraw them from those places, and maybe we can start to have family life again. Because I think whatever we're doing instead of having a normal family life is obviously not working. So that's the idea. Let me know what you think. Thanks for listening. I had a record number of viewers yesterday. Hopefully we keep up the momentum. I'm there for it. I've been preparing for these types of situations for 40 years. I've got the ideas. Hopefully now I have everybody's attention.